Hi, my name is Victoria Wilson, and this is my basketball handout for coaches. I decided to make my handbook geared towards coaches, as in, if I were the head coach of my own basketball program, I would accumulate this handbook to give to all of my coaches, my assistant coaches, maybe even team managers, just any staff that would be associated with my team. So here is our cover. Got the spine right here. So we dive into the table of contents. As you can see here, we have the table of contents and they have all the page numbers right here. So if a coach decides, okay, it's time for player evaluations for preseason, then the coach can go ahead and go here, find player evaluations, and see that is on page 11, which also they can just skip ahead and go ahead and look through these little tabs here and find right here player evaluations. And then as you can see, we have player evaluations sheets right here that the coach can utilize. So now we'll take it from the top. First up in the book is philosophy. I have my philosophy so that all the coaches can know what my philosophy is as a coach and what I am looking for within my program. Then we have team identity, and that will just showcase what the dream squad would look like for our team. Next up, we have coaching roles. This would be a very important part for my coaches to read early on to see what their specific role would be within this team. And will always be in this handbook, so we can always come back to this and look if, say, they're not sure what they should be doing or they feel like they're doing too much. Next up, we have preseason meeting agenda. So this would be an example of when preseason comes up and we're having our first team meeting before the whole season starts. This is the agenda that we would use for that meeting. It also comes with different explanations, how we're going to set up our classroom. We're going to have all of our different handouts in here. And then we will also have certain questions that the parents are going to ask the coaches, so the coaches can read up and kind of practice certain answers that they're going to say. Next up, we have attendance, which is basically just a sheet talking about how important attendance is to our team, and that it shows commitment and dedication, and if players aren't showing certain attendance, then they will get the consequences as shown here on this page. So the coaches can always go back to that if they forget our standards for that. Next up, as we saw earlier, we have our player evaluation sheets. We have our winter player evaluations. We have our fall meeting player evaluations, where the players are even going to have their own sheet that we could give to them for them to rate themselves and see how they think they're doing. Next up, we have skill set. And skill set is basically about what we expect of each position from our players on the court. So we'll go through point guards, what their ball handling should look like, what their decision making should look like, what their passing, what their shooting, and what their basketball IQ should look like to be a point guard on our team. This is a good section if a player, say, is playing at a small forward position, but they want to become a shooting guard. But we're not playing them at that position. They can go to coach, ask, what can I do to become a shooting guard? And so any of the assistant coaches that have this book can go back and look at this if they forget our standards. As for the player's handbook, it would be very, very similar to this, just with some minor tweaks, like that skill set section would be in the player's handbook. So the players don't even have to ask the coach if they want to know, okay, what do I need to work on to become a shooting guard? All right, so next up, like the players, for example, would not have practice plans in their handbook, but the coaches do. We have example practice plans for what a practice would look like in the first 2 weeks of practice. We have different practice plans of what it would look like during a game week and during a bye week. And so basically that's just so they know what to look forward to and what they need to get ready for. Next up, we have the symbol key. And that's just explaining what the different little scribbles mean that will be used later on in our drills and our sets and all the different little diagrams that we use in our book. After that, we go into offense. And basically in offense, we have different things such as we have offensive sets that we're going to use in a game. We have offensive drills for during practice, what we're going to do to work on our offense. We also have in here different shooting drills for, just to make sure that our shooting is up to par for our offense that we plan to run. But basically, we just have all in here, all these different drills that the coaches can come to when they want to freshen up so they know comes practice time what every drill is, and they don't have to be asking the head coach during practice and looking like they don't know what they're doing. So these handbooks would be given out to the coaches early on as soon as they become a part of this team. So we have all of that, and then we also have the defensive section. And the defensive section, that has different drills such as rebounding drills, defensive sets that we would run in a game, all those different options, and then we have little explanations between each of our sets so that the coaches know, okay, in-game situation, this is what we're going to run, this is why we're going to run it. And then our next up, we got quite a lot of pages for offensive and defensive because, you never know when you need to freshen up with a new drill for practice so that the players don't get stuck. So next up, we have inventory. This is a list of items that would be very greatly appreciated that we have throughout the season. Some of them are things that we might already have going into the school. Some things that we might need to get every year, some things we might need to get every few years. So that's a couple pages on different items with the prices on those. And then budget, we have our budget, some different things that are going to cost us money throughout the year, such as the preseason, like summer tournaments or the end of the season banquet. And then we also have on this page some options to fundraise and save money. Next up in our coaching handbook, we have case studies, which is basically just scenarios that might happen throughout the season, such as if a player is complaining about what their playing time is or the different things that we talked about on here that could happen during the season. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen, doesn't mean that there's going to be tons of other things that are going to happen that aren't in this book, but so we have this for the coaches to look at so they're ready for some of these scenarios that may happen. And then second to last, we have coaching situations, which are basically different game management situations that we would have that the coaches need to be very familiar with, such as substituting, bench expectations, what to do in end of the game situations, when to foul, what to do for free throws, so that all the coaches know the answers when the players ask them. And then the last section here is statistics, and this has all the different statistic sheets that we will be using during a game. We have in-game ones that we're going to use to keep track of each player's fouls, how many timeouts we have per quarter, and also the individual player stats and the whole team stats. So that is my basketball handout for coaches, geared towards coaches, written by me. So my greatest takeaway from this quarter was probably creating this handbook. I'm kind of answering both questions in one. This handbook, because I would love to be a head coach someday for a girls basketball team. So knowing that I already have this head start on this nice handbook that I won't even have to, I'll revisit this obviously, add different drills, change my philosophy up, and just add more things, tweak more things in this, but it's something that I was able to take away from this class because I was able to get feedback from the teacher about all these different things that I was submitting and knowing, okay, so this didn't work because of that. My budget in the first place, I wasn't clear enough. I just wrote a paragraph about what the budget was instead of laying it out in a chart, which I ended up doing in here. So I think it was just nice to take this class and basically just create this handbook and learn more about that side of coaching rather than just the psychology of it and just what to think about and more about, okay, what are the logistics that we have to do as a coach. But thank you, and I had a great time in this class.